Going on, guys? Welcome to week 2 of the live stream. Got me and my man Josh Fernandez there. What's going on, Fern?
Mike, I'm doing well. Just glad it's Friday. It's been a long week at work, but I'm just glad that we're sitting here talking some NFL football DFS action. It's exciting. We got many more weeks to go, but week 2 already.
Yeah, like football goes faster than you think, and all of a sudden it's going to be middle of December, and we're going to be thinking about the end of the year.
Yeah, that's a depressing thought.
But hey, hopefully people did good in week 1. I had a bit of a mixed bag. I played pretty light, knowing that I didn't have a great beat on things as far as a overall standpoint. I knew it was going to be a bit of the Wild West, and I think it was, especially New Orleans, Tampa Bay. That was something.
Yeah, that was shocking. I know that everybody is. I mean, honestly, I don't know how you can be surprised that the Saints smashed. I mean, that's
Right.
no question. But damn, man, like that Tampa Bay performance with those receivers just burning the New Orleans secondary, and I mean Fitzpatrick just chucking them up there and really nothing contested. It was an easy day. It blew my mind.
Yeah, no pressure out of the Saints defense, and the corners just couldn't keep up. So
yeah, and I got to say that my game theory play on not going with James Conner was also a little frustrating. But in hindsight, I understand the nature of his role now. That's the Steelers for you. It's everything is kind of concentrated into a small number of players, and I'll speak for myself. I should have anticipated. I don't know if I should say I should have anticipated a 30-point outing, but I should have anticipated a high concentration of usage for Connor, given the pattern that they've shown us over the years.
Yeah, and you know what? I kind of think that they also did that I underestimated was their eagerness to show Le'Veon Bell, hey, we're fine without you. So, like the opening series was. It didn't do much, but it was all Connor. So I think that was a bit of a message just to somebody that was sitting at home on their couch.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I saw there was a lot of chatter about like Connor's celebration with his teammates after his first touchdown. If that was kind of like a little over the top enthusiasm as like a dig at Lev. I guess maybe, but clearly that team, I guess is trying to send as, I don't know, subtle of a message, maybe not so subtle of a message that they can get by without him. But that tie, I don't know, guys.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting in week 2 here because I feel like there's 2 schools of thought. Like there's everyone who realizes, like we just said, that, if you weren't on James Conner, you get it was an error and you're jumping in with both feet. But I also feel like there's a good amount of people who will be like, well, I played James Conner. I got the good week out of him. Not fade him, but they're not going to feel like, oh, I've got to play this guy. So I think his ownership goes up, but I just wonder how much.
Yeah, no, that's definitely something to ponder. I mean, I think that's one of the number one questions this week is how much it goes up. And I don't think it's crazy to say that he'll be the highest owned running back. And from a FanDuel perspective, that's my preferred site. From a FanDuel perspective, I don't see any reason for him to be any lower than the number one owned running back. That $7,000 salary is still too cheap for him. If he's theoretically going to have that role where usage concentrates in to his hands, which I think it will. I think 7,000 is still too cheap. But damn it, man, just thinking back that he was $5,000, and that's that's gonna burn me for a little while that I didn't use him. So
Yeah, I stayed away from him in really big pools, but I used him in pretty much anything that was medium-sized GPP or I didn't play much cash. But
yeah, well, and just to be clear, I'm a one lineup guy in every sport: baseball, football, basketball. I play one lineup.
Good on you for doing that, because I have a hard time like limiting myself to single digits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think and I don't know if anybody out there also is a one lineup person. I don't think that's very popular nowadays with just the wide array of low dollar multi-entry tournaments. But I view it as a fun challenge. I view it as a fun challenge to kind of start on a macro sense and just narrow it down throughout the week as much as I can until, Saturday night, ideally not Sunday morning when, the heart rate starts going up. Oh my God, what do I got to pick? But Saturday night, just getting that player pool narrowed down and try to just build that perfect lineup. For me, that's fun. And whenever I do multi-entry, it stresses me out. It stresses me out a lot more. And I think that's not common for people. I think they feel more stressed out with one lineup.
Yeah. And there's something to be said for that, because you diversify with all these shares of people, but you get this guy going off in one lineup and another guy going off in another lineup. And all of a sudden you felt like you had this great day and you won all the money. And if would have been concentrated, sure. But, you've got one guy going off in each lineup, and all of a sudden you're not even hitting cut lines.
So it's really just like I guess this conversation, kind of just illuminates the reality is you just have to figure out what kind of personality you have. Are you the kind of person that can live with a lot of moving parts, potentially having to root against yourself, just the emotions of having 10, 20, 50, 150 lineups out there and just, having a lot of moving parts? Or are you the kind of person that can accept, narrowing things down to a small number of players, and kind of having that FOMO, but being able to live with the FOMO, and I feel like I can live with it, but I know a lot of people out there, you just have to know what you want to get out of this, what kind of player you are. And if you are going to panic that you're going to make the wrong choice, you don't want to do single entry, then don't do single entry. And if you feel like you can live with missing out on a few, awesome plays, then by all means go that route. So just know yourself, I guess. Yeah. Hashtag know yourself.
Yeah. So that'll conclude our Buddhist segment of the show. That was some good strategy talk. So we had something else in mind, but I'll save that for another week. I think that
many more weeks to go.
Some nice convo there. Before we go into this week a little further, just want to give a shout out to everybody producing content on the lineup logic side. You got Jeremy Lopez putting out the tools every week. Those are really awesome. I know he's producing some companion content to go along with explaining it, some videos, some things like that. So keep your eyes out for that stuff. You got Alex Ramazowski putting out the pricing comparison between DK and FanDuel. That's super useful just to see what one model values versus another one, on those two sites. And, some of it's not useful at all when there's a price difference, but some of it is notable and even actionable. We got Joe Berg putting out some of his GPP stuff, Quafo, Adakwa putting out his thoughts from like a meta sense. And then I'll try and get I haven't gotten it up this week, but my 7 up, 7 down, I try to get out every week. I'm a little late on it this week, and anything I'm missing. But pay attention to the lineuplogicdfs.com site for that stuff.
And I'll be getting my cheat sheet picks up. If not tonight, then that'll be my Saturday project. Obviously, we're going to be talking week 2 in the next 15 to 20 seconds, but and you'll get an idea of where I stand and where you yourself stand, Mike. But we'll get to expand it much more in the cheat sheet. Yep. So why don't we dive in, man?
Yep, cheat sheet's a great tool. So
yes.
All right, first thing I want to talk about this week, Fern. What are we going to do with the Leonard Fournette situation? Didn't practice this week. The team kind of thought he was in a little bit better of a spot. And then he came out and said, no, I'm a game time decision. And now the team agrees and says, yeah, he's a game time decision. My feeling is if he's playing, if he's out there taking reps pregame, I'm staying away from the backfield altogether. But let's assume he's out. Where are you going if he's out?
Yeah, I mean, okay, well, first and foremost, I was very high on Leonard Fournette last week. And, yeah, I used him in my single lineup. And that did not feel good to see him leave the game with that hammy. Yeah, if he misses the game, I mean, obviously TJ Yeldon steps in, and he's a great value play. I'm not going to go scrolling through salaries right now, but I'm pretty sure he's in the 5,000 something range. I could be wrong.
Here, I'll take a look.
I don't know if I'm necessarily. I mean, look, take it from me, from my perspective, with a single entry mindset. I guess, not necessarily cash, but single entry, triple ups, quintuple ups, quins, whatever you want to call them. I just can't go TJ Yeldon, especially on FanDuel. Maybe on DK, maybe on Fantasy Draft with the points per reception element to it. But there are just too many running backs that I'm interested in. Higher priced running backs, especially this week. There's a few that I'm definitely interested over TJ Yeldon. And I just don't think that I can stomach, sacrificing the relative certainty of a higher priced, guaranteed high usage running back. So I'm really just not interested in Yeldon. That said, if you're running, I would say, but TJ Yeldon would start making his way into my lineups once I reach the 10 to 15 lineup mark.
I'm right there with you. It's everybody's just assuming like Yeldon's going to be the guy. I think Corey Grant actually eats a lot of that Leonard Fournette role if Fournette is out. They like Yeldon as their third down back, their passing situation. They mix him in with some rushing. I don't think it's a clean cut. Okay, Yeldon's our guy. Last season Grant kind of came on, and this offseason a lot of people that are sharp were on him in like some best ball, late picks, things like that. So I think I actually like Corey Grant from a bit of a leverage standpoint. Everybody's going to flock to Yeldon if Fournette's out. So, I agree with you there. And you don't want to go no Yeldon if you're building a lot of lineups. But
yeah, I mean, and if you're running 3 to 5 lineups, I just that's too few number of lineups for my taste to start looking at Yeldon. Or Grant, but if you're running 20, 30 lineups, definitely want to get some shares of them, just for the simple fact that they're cheap and they're going to be playing from behind, and Yeldon can catch the ball, and you never know. You can get a cheap touchdown and, 50, 60 yards from Grant, and we'll take 12 points all day from him if he's really cheap.
Yep. You think the Patriots are going to handle the Jags down there?
I don't know. Like, it's hard to say. Like, I don't want to take any bold stances quite yet. I don't want to say like a toss-up game. What's the spread right now? It's okay. It's
Pats 1.5.
So it's all. I mean, we can basically just say it's a pick 'em.
Yeah, pretty close.
At this point in time, I don't feel comfortable taking a bold stance on this game. My gut tells me to side with the Patriots just because they're the Patriots, but it is on the road in Jacksonville. We know what Jacksonville can do. Another thing too is that, New England likes to take away the top option on a team, and who's the top
Right.
option to take away on Jacksonville right now?
Yeah. The thing I'm struggling with is I like that they're favored going down there because that's telling me that Vegas has some faith in them. But I also worry that the Patriots typically see a high volume of betting, so they may be wanting to keep things even. Where if this was two neutral teams, it would be much closer to a pick 'em or less than a point.
Yeah.
So I'm debating what that means. But.
Well, and it's also swung in Jacksonville's favor.
Has it?
Well, right now it's a pick 'em. I'm looking at. I like the Fantasy Lab. I don't know if anyone out there listening uses the Fantasy Labs Vegas page. It's free. It's, in my opinion, the best Vegas page for all sports: baseball, basketball, football, etc. I think they get their numbers from Pinnacle. And according to Fantasy Labs Vegas page, it opened 23.5 New England, 21.5 Jacksonville, and now it's a pick 'em, 22.25 for both teams. Almost a 1-point swing in favor of Jacksonville. Jacksonville's moved significantly. New England's dropped over a point. Yeah. So that's an interesting turn of events there. We'll see how that goes for the next, 36 hours. But that's a tough game to nail down. I don't know. Like in tournaments, you definitely like Tom Brady, because he's going to be like, who knows what single-digit % owned.
Yep.
And he has smash spot potential against any team. But for me, the way I play, I'm not going to have any shares of any player in this game.
Right. Yeah, it crossed my mind to roll Brady out there with Chris Hogan because Hogan obviously didn't give you anything week one. I don't think anybody is on him, and like you said, Brady's not going to be his typical ownership. And Odell Beckham ran free through that defense, and he probably would have had a bigger day if Eli were 3 years younger. So. He had a couple close misses on touchdowns, and if Odell would have added a touchdown to that yardage line, it would have been pretty substantial scoring.
Yeah, definitely.
So I could see Hogan doing the same thing. Getting loose underneath and kind of chewing them up.
Yeah, and by the way, just speaking of the Vegas line, I can't remember when is the last time you saw the Patriots at a implied total this low.
Yeah.
I mean, we're so used to them at 28 and up, 26, 28 and up. That's interesting. That might be a sneaky bet on the over. Because 22.25 right now, that's very un-Patriots like. Mm-hmm. But then again, there's a lot of people out there that are much smarter than you and I, and there's a reason why they're implied to score, barely over 3 touchdowns. So, an interesting game for me to watch and observe and take notes on.
Yeah, that'll be a fun one. All right, so let's jump into 3 games that we think are optimal situations for scoring and fantasy production. The first one on my list here, you got Kansas City and Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh. KC did what they did last week against the Chargers, who people thought were going to be a pretty solid defense. Pittsburgh didn't look great, but they were on the road, so now they're home. In their building where they typically score a high amount of points. The Chiefs have the ability to keep up with them. Any pitfalls in this one that you're worried about, Fern? Or is it just all good?
I mean, everything I've been looking at all week across the industry, it's clear that this is the game. Maybe the 1A to the Cleveland, New Orleans 1B as far as popularity, though ultimately I think this is going to be the 1A in regards to both teams being popular. Um, I don't think that New Orleans is going to fall far behind in ownership compared to these two teams. I think, New Orleans, KC, Pitt, all will be extremely highly owned. Cleveland, there's going to be ownership there, but I think it'll be less. So as far as a overall game standpoint, I think that both teams will see significant ownership. That said, you really do have to be you really do have to have some concern with the matchup for the Chiefs on the road against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has some exploitable aspects of their defense, but they just have so much explosive talent on that team that it's really hard to look away from the Chiefs in this matchup. So it is difficult, but let's just kind of look at the Chiefs first, and then we can talk about the Steelers. Just start with Pat Mahomes. The guy's basically this generation's Brett Favre so far. He's a gunslinger. He's got cojones. He's got a cannon. He can chuck it down the field, and he will chuck it down the field. He'll throw into tight windows. He'll throw into, throw contested balls. He's not afraid. And so I think that mindset that he has will match up well with this particular game, because he's probably going to need to be very aggressive, given the fact that, at least in my opinion, and I think many other people, the Steelers should put up a lot of points.
And that's a really stark difference between what they faced last week and Tyrod Taylor, a guy who just doesn't want to take any risks if he can avoid it. So, right. And I've seen actually a good bit of Mahomes hate on Twitter in the last little bit here, and I don't really get it. Like I know he's unproven and all that. He's on the road, etc. Their defense is okay, the Steelers, but yeah, I don't think their defense is anything special. I think they're good as a unit, but a guy like Tyreek Hill could shred them. Even though they're good against tight ends, Travis Kelce, I think, can have a big game against anyone. So, I'm fairly interested in the Chiefs side, where I feel like most people are really interested in the Pittsburgh side with like a companion KC player to run it back with.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that assessment. There's something to, I think that there's this misconception among like casual DFS players that, a defense, how do I put this? Let me start by saying I actually think the Steelers defense is a sneaky play in large field tournaments this week. And the reason is because, yes, Kansas City will score points. Theoretically, if you played this game 100 times, Kansas City is going to score 3+ touchdowns, I'd say 60 times. Okay, maybe 2/3 of the time. The Steelers at home, like any NFL team, competent defense at home has a chance to hold the team and limit their opponent. But I think on the whole, like, the Chiefs are going to score points. That said, I do also think that the Steelers have interception and sack potential in this game. Interception and sack potential, that's what we're looking for with a team defense. So I do think that the Steelers defense has sneaky potential to put up double-digit points at low ownership, extremely low ownership at that. But that doesn't mean that the Chiefs also can't be useful. So yeah, there's going to be hate on Mahomes, his unproven track record, and the fact that they're playing on the road and they're playing against a defense that has this reputation of being a good defense. So sure, the Steelers can go out and sack him a few times and maybe pick him off and maybe get a pick six, and give him some trouble.
Yeah, because I mean, Mahomes is going to have those games this year where he's going to force mistakes, and he'll have multiple interceptions in single games.
Right. I kind of look at it as the equivalent of a strikeout fly ball pitcher in DFS. There's nothing wrong like with getting 8 strikeouts and 3 earned runs from a cheap low owned pitcher that gives up a couple home runs to get those 3. So, in a lot of large tournaments in baseball, sometimes it works out where the pitcher gives you a 40 spot with 7, 8, 9 strikeouts and a couple earned runs. Yeah. But those couple earned runs were on solo shots. So that's my point is Kansas City might have a few solo home runs, a couple home runs, but the Steelers might still give them trouble on the other side of things. So I like the Chiefs, and I think that they have blow-up potential in individual spots. And really the only guy that I truly am looking at in seriously considering in my single entry lineup is Tyreek Hill. I mean, it's a tough matchup. Again, it's a tough matchup. It's not this easy matchup, but his usage is insane. Andy Reid is like really scheming to get him the ball in space. He's just so explosive, just an unbelievable player right now. So I think at this point in time in his career, with the quarterback that he has that's taking risks, he's borderline matchup proof. I like Tyreek a lot.
Yeah, and I'm just sitting here thinking about what you were saying about the Steeler defense. I agree with that, and I think it also applies to the Chiefs because Roethlisberger has got that same blow up potential, even at home. He could throw 3-4 interceptions, even though the Chiefs are kind of a terrible defense right now. They're well coached. They've got a good scheme. There are some playmakers there. They're not like last year's Browns team. So it wouldn't be the biggest surprise if the Chiefs had a double-digit day as a defense that's really cheap and really low owned.
But. Yeah, I know. I agree. Yeah, this is a really interesting game if you just look at it from different angles because, like, you're right. Like first of all, Roethlisberger looked like shit last week. I mean, he's just making
a lot of sacks, a lot of interceptions.
A lot of interceptions. I know the weather. I know on the road, there's that whole narrative of Roethlisberger on the road in the 1:00 game narrative. He looked like garbage. I'm sorry, but
the worst he's ever looked, and he hasn't looked good lately.
No, and he's not getting any younger. So both defenses have a chance to do something, and at the same time, both offenses have a chance to do something, and they could all happen at the same time. So this is.
Can you use a second defense in the flex spot?
I would tread lightly as far as like looking at it as this smash spot.
Yeah, I'd be careful, especially with how much chalk is going to be on it. But
let's talk about Pittsburgh, though. What do you think?
I think AB is in a great spot. Juju should do well. Connor, I'm on board with Connor this week. I think we all learned a lesson last week, and he's just too well priced. You're not going to expect him to put up almost 200 yards of all-purpose yardage every week, but they showed their hand and that he's going to be the guy. They're just going to funnel everything through him. So I think you really Roethlisberger is my only kind of hang up on the Pittsburgh side.
Yeah, and I think Roethlisberger is going to carry some decent ownership. I could see him being top 5. I mean, and we don't really worry much about quarterback ownership. That's nothing that you even want to spend a moment thinking about. Quarterback ownership is so leveled out, I guess you'd say. You're never going to see a 30. I mean, I guess you'd see a 30% owned quarterback if it's like a Min-Sal guy on like a small slate. But on this full 15 gamer or 16 gamer or whatever the hell it is, 14 gamer, Thursday, Monday, 14 games. This full 14 game main slate, Wait, it's not even a 14. Holy crap,
Yeah, they
Mike.
probably knocked the
13
Sunday night game out too.
There's the Thursday night, the Sunday night, and the Monday.
It's gotten ridiculous. But like, you used to be able to just play the week, and now you got to figure out, okay, this slate, and then that slate, and then the full slate, and then the mini slate, and
I know. So the bottom line is we're talking about 26 quarterbacks. Like, the ownership is always leveled up. You don't pay attention to ownership with quarterbacks. I don't. That said, I do think Roethlisberger will be heavily owned. But yeah, James Conner, man, I have him locked in for me. I love AB in this spot. I think he's in a epic smash spot in this game. We know how susceptible the Chiefs defense is to the deep ball, all the A-dot tweets about how their A-dot allowed is so high, and Antonio Brown is a flawless receiver. Obviously,
I like that AB is so expensive because there's such nice options right there below him.
Right.
Like, Michael Thomas and DeAndre Hopkins, and Julio Jones, all these people who are right there. So I think, people are going to save a couple dollars and not have AB where he should be.
Yeah. I might be interested in like just going Juju and Connor, kind of a little mini stack there. Even in a single entry or cash. I love the Steelers offense, not necessarily Roethlisberger. And again, I love AB in this game, but like you said, Mike, I mean, you could argue that Julio, you could argue that DeAndre, Michael Thomas, like you could argue that any of those guys are the top receiver this week. And with wide receiver variance being something that I don't think that a lot of people just have gotten through their heads yet, that wide receivers, the variance is so high. Like wide receivers, I think, are the equivalent to hitters in MLB DFS, whereas running backs, at least high usage running backs, are equivalent to like pitchers. Just get the high usage running back in your damn lineup and move on with your life.
Yeah, Gurley and Kamara showed that last week.
That's what they did.
All right, let's hit Cleveland, New Orleans. Yeah, for me, there's not a lot of analysis over on the Saints side. It's everything is good. I still don't have any respect for the Browns defense. They made some plays against the Steelers, but again, were they making plays or were the Steelers just being bad on the road? So that's another one of those. It's week 2. You don't know what's what yet. But a lot of people are running it back. They're liking Tyrod Taylor. The receivers, a little bit on the running backs, like Duke in a shootout. Do you think this one turns into a shootout from both sides?
I mean, let's just go back to the 100 games thought experiment. If they play this game 100 times, what would happen? And there's going to be a shootout. There's always going to be a shootout when you play it 100 times. But I don't think that the shootout potential is necessarily there. And my heart and soul is telling me that this New Orleans defense is not that bad. Last week, I think it was fluky. They're just way too good in 2017. Sacking the quarterback. I can't remember. I think, Mike, they were like a top 10 team in sacks and interceptions. They were a very competent, ferocious defense last year. And the idea that they have just fallen off the map and are now like the Tampa Bay defense is ridiculous. I just think that it was just a fluky week. Mike Evans and Deshaun Jackson and not Kenny Galladay. What the hell is his name? All of a
Crawley.
Sudden. What is it?
The cornerback on the Saints, Crawley?
No. The receiver, Godley.
Oh, Chris Godwin?
Chris Godwin, Jesus Christ. Yeah. I mean, those receivers were just like running free.
Yep.
That was just a fluke, in my opinion. I don't think that happens again. I don't think that Josh Gordon I think Josh Gordon is going to be very popular, and I don't think that he has a field day. I don't think that Tyrod comes out and just balls out. I don't think that that there's really shootout potential that I want to place a significant amount of bankroll on. Do I like any of the Browns pieces? I do. I like Jarvis Landry a lot, actually, especially on DK and
really
draft as a PPR option in garbage time. But I'm just really, and I guess maybe Duke Johnson too, but I'm just really concerned that the Saints are going to like get their shit together mentally, schematically, and come out and just destroy the Browns.
It's a possibility for sure. Yeah, I feel like I'm chasing my my hopes for last week being on that page. So I'll probably work in the safer guys like Landry, and then here and there maybe take a stab at Josh Gordon because I mean I think he had 3 targets. He caught a touchdown, and he almost caught a second touchdown. Like the dude is just a human touchdown machine. So.
Yeah, and I like the fact that you and I, play differently, and you play multiple lineups because we can kind of bounce these different perspectives off each other. And I do want to reiterate that I do think that there is shootout potential in there. Obviously, we know that the Superdome is the Coors Field of NFL DFS. We know that that is a place where points are scored. And yes, the Saints in 2017 were a ferocious defense, and they got decimated last week by the Bucks. So it's there. I just am treading lightly with the Browns' offensive pieces, but I do love Landry in this matchup. I just think that he's going to be peppered all day by Tyrod.
Yep, just needs a touchdown.
Yeah. Now, on the other hand, I love the Saints.
I don't think you can go wrong with any of the Saints.
No. I think Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara are the like vintage Le'Veon and AB of 2018.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good comparison. All right, then this game, the Lions 49ers. A lot of people are kind of getting hip to this game, a lot like Cincinnati Indy last week. So I'm kind of curious if the ownership on some of these guys is going to be fairly high. A nice total on it, 48.5. The Lions defense was garbage, and I said this on the Tuesday pod. Like, Patricia was in charge of the worst passing defense in the league with the Patriots for the first half of last season. Now he's with the Lions, and their passing defense looks atrocious. Maybe he just doesn't know how to coordinate a defense to stop the pass very well. They also don't have that much talent. I think they have a couple of nice, like, they get, Slay's a good corner, and Ansa, when he's healthy, can be an okay rusher, but like, they're big names, so people give them more credit. But yeah, I'm interested in some of the Lions receivers, maybe Stafford on the Lions side. And then on the Niners side, I kind of like the running backs, and Alf Morris is really cheap. 3.6K on FanDuel. Like, he got the limited goal line work, he got more of it, and that they split the carries evenly. So I think he's the Niner to own, besides maybe George Kittle.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing is, and I agree. Like, I like Alf. I like both RBs on the San Francisco side with Matt Breida. And I guess it really just depends on how you think this game is going to go. Like you said, Mike, that scheme that Matt Patricia runs, kind of just letting ball catchers run free, and between the 20s, just letting teams accumulate yards and move down the field, and then just kind of hunkering down in the red zone. That is going to happen. It's going to happen every week. Like, you are going to have guys get yardage against the Lions every week, just like it happened with the Patriots. Yardage, yardage, yardage. But the question is the red zone. Like, what's going to happen in the red zone? And I don't know that the Lions have like the talent or the cachet, you know, the culture that the Patriots had to kind of like hunker down and stop teams in the red zone. So that concerns me. And so I do think that the 49ers put up points. And I do see, you know, if, you know, we ran this game 100 times, I do see Alf Morris more often than not having the game flow go in a way where he is kind of getting that run out the clock, you know, just kind of put the game away, salt the game away, game flow. So I really like him. I definitely do. I like Brady.
Even in a shootout, like I could see him going 18 for 60 and 2 touchdowns. And like he just gets the work at the goal line, and you know, they just force it in with him.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love Alf. I love Alf. I like Breda. You know, I mean, there's not, now that said, there is that whole, there's that whole situation in Baltimore where everybody was banking on Alex Collins getting goal line work and salting the game away. And look what happens 2 weeks in a row.
Right.
Buck Allen takes those goal line carries. So, you know, it's entirely possible that happens too with Matt Breda. Who knows? But I don't mind it. You know, I don't mind it. Again, like going back to, you know, what I said earlier, is I just like a lot of these higher priced running backs this week. So I don't know if they'll make their way onto my lineup, but if I'm running, you know, a dozen or so, I could definitely get some Alf in there, maybe a little Breda, but George Kittle is for me, top 3 or 4 tight end this week.
Yeah, I mean, he might be the actual goal line back, a la Jimmy Graham on the Seahawks last year.
Yeah. I love him this week. I mean, I can't remember. I need to really start writing this down because I'm scrolling through Twitter throughout my days, sitting in traffic, and I see these little nuggets, and I just am like, oh, interesting. And I don't write the exact thing down. I promise you I will start doing that, everybody. But something like George Kittle ran a route on like 90-something% of the snaps he was in on. I mean, the guy is there to run routes.
Yeah.
And he is so far in his brief career showing to be I don't want to say an elite receiving tight end, but I'll just go ahead and say it. Like, he's an elite receiving tight end. The dude is a baller.
Got the raw tools.
And he's cheap, and he's in a great matchup. I love him.
I don't think anybody on the Lions can cover him.
No. What do you think on the Detroit side of things?
I'm really high on Kenny Golladay. I think last week was not a fluke, and he continues that progression and catches a touchdown this week. You know, the Niners, their cornerback situation's kind of suspect. So, if Golladay gets volume and touchdowns, it's a smash spot.
Yeah, I love Golladay as well. I think he's my favorite option on the Detroit side of things. I mean, I like Stafford a lot. I do like Stafford a lot in this game.
I just worry about that O-line protecting him. They did not look good on Monday night.
That is true. Yeah. No, there is some definite question marks there. I don't know what the Jets were drinking that week. They were just on another planet. That was insane. And I don't think I paid enough attention to assess that performance. Like, when I was watching that Browns and Steelers game, it was very apparent to me that was more Big Ben's doing than the Browns doing. I don't know. Did you watch that Monday night game as closely? Was that more Stafford's doing, or was that more the Jets doing?
I think it's a little bit of both. The reason it's hard to make that call, I think, a lot of people put out there, and I think the Jets players themselves said they knew it was coming. The play calling was predictable. Some of the signals hadn't changed from last season or something like that, and so those interceptions were coming off of some insider trading kind of situation. Maybe Michael Kendricks will become a Jet. Yeah. But I mean, they still had to get themselves in position. They still had to make some plays. So I'm really interested this week. I'm using them a couple places.
It's a lesson for just because we don't necessarily like a quarterback that much doesn't mean that we should completely write off the receivers.
Right.
If a quarterback has a mediocre game, a receiver can still have a monster game. And so I agree with you. I love Kenny Golladay. I mean, second year, big body guy, great downfield, does the red zone thing. No more Eric Ebron. Obviously, Luke Wilson is just a guy. Yep. So I think he is, in fact, their big body, physical pass catcher going forward for the rest of the season. And it might be smart to start jumping on this train here and trying to get him while the salary is still extremely palatable. That said, I do think Marvin Jones is a nice pivot off of him. I think Golladay is going to be more heavily owned, and Marvin Jones has that spike game potential where he can catch a couple TDs and just go off. It only happens a couple times a year. Not sure if this is going to be the week, but he's there. And then obviously Golden Tate too, like Golden Tate, but only on PPR sites. Same mindset for me as Jarvis Landry.
Yeah. When Tate's healthy, he's right up there with the best slot receivers in the game.
Yeah.
All right, couple spots. Let's try and fire through these. Couple spots we don't like. I came up with these. You tell me if I'm wrong or not. Chargers, Bills. I don't think the Bills are as bad as they showed in Week 1. They're not far from it, but they weren't good on the road last season. That's going to continue, and not enough people are giving attention to the fact that the Chargers looked really bad. And, old Phillip Rivers back there, Marmaduke, his arm is weaker than ever. I don't know if you saw the passes that he was throwing. Like, they look like soft pitch softball throws. You get a hungry cornerback making a play on any of those. There's opportunity for 3 or 4 interception Phillip Rivers meltdown this week.
It's possible. Definitely. I mean, you've got to, first of all, yes, I agree. Phillip Rivers is, he needs to just, start considering going home with the, how many kids does he have? Like
7.
7?
Something like that. Yeah. Start helping out. You deadbeat.
Yeah. Come on, man. You're only making like $25 million. Those kids, you loser. No, yeah, I mean, that's true. That's concerning, especially going forward, thinking about guys like Tyrell Williams, Travis Benjamin.
Guys that do their work on the boundaries.
Absolutely,
he doesn't have the arm strength, I don't think, to get it done. And the Bills actually have okay corners. They're not. They're above average, I think.
I agree. That said, how much of that passing volume goes through Melvin Gordon and yeah.
I was looking back at last year, and Keenan, I mean, shredded them for like an all-time kind of game. But that was the 5 interception Nathan Peterman game in LA. So, obviously he still put up that line, but the opportunities were just jacked way up because the Bills just handed them the ball consistently.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing is like, I think a lot of people are going to look at that game log that, remember that game. Like first of all, obviously Nathan Peterman unfortunately isn't playing this week. And I say unfortunately because the dude seems like a lock for multiple interceptions.
Yep.
Anytime he is on the field, and that Chargers defense would be lock button for me. You know, I just, this,
I mean,
this is
Josh Allen can throw some INTs himself. You know, he's not known for his accuracy.
Game I just think it's going to be a super boring, like 18 to 10,
12.
Yeah, 12, whatever. Well, I guess 10 would imply that the
right.
Bills scored a touchdown.
Yeah. So yeah, it's going to be sloppy, I think.
It is. Now, I will say this. I do think that, going back to PPR sites, Keenan Allen is interesting. There's no way that Phillip Rivers, I don't say there's no way. I never want to say there's no way. But, I'm going to just completely beat a dead horse here. But if, 100 games, Phillip Rivers has a good, deep ball outside receiver game, maybe like 10 to 15% of the time. Yeah, that other 85%, right. What's he doing, Mike? He's peppering Keenan Allen and Melvin Gordon. PPR is going to be amazing. Outside of that, FanDuel, I'm not touching it.
Yep. All right, and then I'm going to pivot here on the other one I put out. I'm going to bring up Giants Cowboys because this is always just an ugly affair. The Cowboys slow the game down in Dallas. Like they kind of they got the Jerry World advantage. And if you look at the playmakers on the Giants side of the ball, like they should smoke the Cowboys, but they've had playmakers plenty in the past, and it hasn't been the case. You agree with that as an NFC East aficionado?
That is a gross game. Now, that said, that is not on our main slate. However,
is that the Sunday night?
Yeah, that's the Sunday night. Once upon a time, it was on our main slate.
God damn it!
I know that. Well, that was last year. You remember? They made that switch.
All of a sudden, it went away.
Yeah, well, I think DK did it first, then FanDuel, like they always do nowadays, follows DK's lead and took it off. But I agree. This game is going to be very unappealing. If you're going to play, what is it, the showdown contests, that is going to be a tough go. Now, I actually, you know what? It's funny. I'm thinking you're playing a showdown for the Giants Cowboys. It's going to be tough. You probably just want to side with talent in an affair like this, because look at last night. Did you play? I don't know if you played any showdown matchups for that Ravens-Bengals game, but you really don't want to think too hard on it. Just smash some quarterbacks and AJ Green and, move on with your life.
Yeah, so a lot of people out there were kicking themselves for not putting AJ Green in the captain slot.
Yeah, I know, man. I used Mixon in my captain slot, and he's looking like he's going to be out for a couple weeks now with a knee. But I still used AJ. I got him in season long in a couple spots, dynasty in a spot. But yeah, that's my point. Is like, if the game is going to be gross, go with talent. And
good point.
Odell Beckham in this game, interested, but the nature of the game, if it were on the main slate, I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole.
Gotcha. All right, so let's shift gears and go through position by position, give out a cash game and a GPP game, a player we like. I'll kick things off at quarterback. For me, in GPPs, Deshaun Watson at quarterback facing the Titans. A lot of people were, I don't want to say let down week one, but he didn't throw 4 touchdowns, and that's what people had come to expect out of him. So I think paired with DeAndre Hopkins, that's a really nice stack. The Titans have made a habit out of giving up wide receiver 1 numbers. Since last season, they added Malcolm Butler. I don't know if that's doing any good. He was a mixed bag. He had some plays. He also gave up a long touchdown to Kenny Stills. So if Will Fuller plays, maybe go with Fuller and DeAndre Hopkins.
I love Deshaun Watson this week. He is on my short list for my cash single entry, triple up, whatever you want to call it. Risky cash. We'll say risky cash. That's my philosophy. Single entry tournament, risky cash. I don't play 50-50s or double ups. I play quintuples, triple ups, and single entry tournaments. And I love Deshaun Watson. FanDuel 7,400. I mean, against Tennessee, give me that all day. He is going to ball out. And in my view, getting what's his face back? God, I can't remember anybody's names. I'm getting wide receiver, young guy, Notre Dame.
Will Fuller.
Will Fuller. God, man. I got to take my my brain vitamins or whatever from Costco. I love Deshaun Watson this week. But from a GPP's perspective, from a large field GPP perspective, for me, Cam Newton. I think of it like this. Every time I play a quarterback in a large field GPP, if it's not a high-priced Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, and a good matchup and eat the chalk, what am I looking for? I'm looking for a low-owned quarterback that has spike game potential. Not many guys out there have those spike game potentials. Who does? It's Cam Newton. And how do you get spike game potential from a quarterback? Rushing touchdowns, multiple touchdowns.
Yeah.
Cam Newton has that. So if I'm looking for a guy who's going to be, I don't know, 5% owned, let's say 5% owned, Cam Newton has that 30-point upside. So it's entirely possible that he can break the slate and be the number one scoring quarterback against the Atlanta Falcons. So GPPs, loving Cam Newton, cash games, Deshaun Watson is a great pick.
Yep.
And both are running quarterbacks.
Yeah. That's really important to me these days to make sure you've got some yardage padding from rushing.
You never know when those 2 extra points from that touchdown can make all the difference.
Yeah. And then Alec Smith, I think, is in a nice safe spot for facing the Colts at home. So
Washington. Now, the problem with Alex Smith is, I don't know if you saw this, Mike, but his ADOT is like 32nd in the league. I mean, it's fine. I don't care. Like, as a Redskins fan, like, it's just so funny. You're going to get a kick out of this and probably think lower of me for saying this, admitting this. But I was talking at work the other day with one of my coworkers, and and we were like so happy about how well he slides when he scrambles. And everybody probably is just like, who gives a shit? He's sliding. But if you watched RG3 for those years,
Michael Vick,
but Michael Vick. Well, he doesn't know what a slide is. But RG3 wanted to slide, but would just like collapse on the ground like a, like he's, like he's a narcoleptic person just passing out like mid stride. Yeah. And then Kirk Cousins, who for whatever reason like wanted to throw his shoulder into people all the time.
Yeah.
It is refreshing. That said, I got to get used to this this super ultra conservative mindset. So, but yeah, I like Alex Smith against the Colts. I mean, he could, have 20 something completions against them.
Or what about running backs? What do you like in the running back pool?
Well, I like I said earlier, I'm locked in on James Conner. He is definitely going to occupy one of my spots. But I'm really into Dalvin Cook this week. His FanDuel price is 60 something hundred. I want to tell you exactly how much it is. I think it's 6,500. Yeah, 6,500. And we don't really know what to expect with Aaron Rodgers' health this week. I mean, I guess he's okay, but if for whatever reason he's limited, or gets knocked out or whatever, or even if he's in, there's no reason that this Vikings defense can't give the Packers fits and put him in a really good game script situation. And it's clear that Dalvin is a 3-down back, and he just has the potential to have 20, 25 touches in this game and really pay off that nice mid-range salary. I don't think his usage was heavy, extremely low owned, but I don't think he's going to be extremely popular either.
No, I think people are overlooking him because he didn't score a touchdown week 1.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I mentioned Alf earlier. I like Alfred Morris in a GPP setting, and then either setting, cash or GPP. A little more on DK if you're playing cash. But Christian McCaffrey, we saw last season when Greg Olsen went out, he became pretty much the short passing game. De facto, anything under 7 yards went to Christian McCaffrey. So that's the case again. Greg Olsen's out. Some of their other short yardage options like Curtis Samuel aren't back yet from some injuries of their own. I think he's going to get a ton of volume. I liked your Cam call earlier. We talked about that on the Tuesday pod, that it could be a shootout in the Dome there in Atlanta. And, the safe options in that on the Carolina side, Cam and CMC.
Yeah, I love that CMC call. And I like him a lot better this week in this game environment, because the Cowboys, I think, are going to be kryptonite for opposing teams.
Yeah.
They play at a molasses-like pace, and that hurts guys like McCaffrey, who need a lot of volume. So this week things will be different. I like McCaffrey a lot, even on FanDuel.
Yeah, I think he can score a touchdown in the red zone.
Yep.
Any other running backs on the tip of your tongue? I like Adrian Peterson as well.
You didn't even mention God himself, Todd Gurley.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, Todd Gurley, baby.
Touchdown machine.
Yes. I mean, other than Gurley and Kamara, I mean, we didn't really, I feel like we need to make an agreement right now that in week 2, going forward, like when Gurley and Kamara, and I guess whenever he comes back, Lev Bell, like when those guys are in smash spots, we will just say they are in a smash spot. Moving on.
Right. I feel like I don't need to mention Kamara unless he's going to score 30 or more points.
Yeah, I think like we are not giving the people their money's worth by spending a lot of time on those gentlemen. So that said, other than Todd Gurley, I might. Oh man, single entry. I don't know if I can do it, Michael, but Kareem Hunt. I got burned last week by Kareem. That was so frustrating. And Andy Reid, I love him and I hate him because I love how he schemes some of these elite talents. But the usage for Kareem Hunt is just so ridiculous. And I don't know if this year I can really look at him as like a cash lock any week, even in great matchups, because you never know when he's going to get screwed out of being treated the way he should, which is an elite 3-down back.
Yeah, he's a GPP play for me because of that. I thought he was in a smash spot last week against the Chargers defense that doesn't tackle well. No. Turned out Kareem Hunt was the Kansas City running back to own. I'm sorry, Tyreek Hill was the Kansas City running back to own.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. I mean, everybody was like, I mean, I don't want to say everybody was shocked because Tyreek Hill is an elite all-world talent. But you just think, that Chargers defense, that Chargers pass defense is just elite. But again, some of these guys are matchup proof, and Tyreek Hill is just that. So,
but that said, if it is a shootout, there's some elevated opportunity for Hunt, and he can take a rush to the house at any point. He showed last season.
Yep.
All right, wide receivers. Like I said before, DeAndre Hopkins, I think, is the wide receiver 1 this week, even with some pretty stiff competition from AB and Michael Thomas and Julio. So I really like him. Cash, GPP, it's all good.
I like it. There's one guy that is going to be really popular this week because he blew up last week, and that's Quincy Enunwa. Mm-hmm. But I am more interested in Robbie Anderson. I think that Robbie Anderson is going to be one of my favorite players to, let's just say, at least think about this year. Last year, again, another nugget that I should have written down, but this is something that I've been reading periodically on Twitter for the last, 6 to 8 months. That I think Robbie Anderson was like 6th in the NFL in total air yards.
Every throw to him is 30, 40 yards downfield.
Yeah. Yeah. And Sam Darnold is like, again, like small sample size, but he looked good. He looks like he is an NFL quarterback. One game is not anything to put a lot of weight into. That said, I don't think Robbie Anderson is the kind of player that needs to rely on a very good quarterback. So if Sam Darnold is not, a very good quarterback and he's just a decent quarterback, that's just fine. I think Robbie Anderson is a baller, and as long as he can like stay out of handcuffs and out of jail, he is a great play. And going against the Dolphins, I'm all about it.
Yeah, he's the Kenny Stills of the Jets offense, and you know what Kenny Stills could do firsthand.
Yeah, that's another guy. On the other hand, you got Kenny Stills, and Adam Gase is looking to get him involved. And
if Parker's out, Kenny Stills is their wide receiver 1.
Yeah, and by the way, I have to apologize personally to you because you like told me last week, that's my boy. That man won me.
I told you better play him.
And you told me like Kenny Stills, you got to use him, Fern, and I didn't fucking use him. I didn't use James Conner. I didn't use Alvin Kamara, and I didn't use Kenny Stills.
I used Stills and Kamara as well, and I didn't have the week I wanted to have either. So a lot of that was based on some quarterback misses like Mariota. Ugh.
Yeah, not to mention the negative points from the Saints defense.
Yeah, a lot of Saints hurts. But
what else?
Getting back to the Jets receivers there though. Enunwa, I like him in cash fine, but with Jermaine Kearse coming back, that's just going to knock a couple targets off his total. And he had a great game with, I think it was 10 or 11 targets. He might have a mediocre game with 7 or 8 targets. So that's something to monitor there.
Another guy that's getting a lot of air time this week is Nelson Aguilar going against Tampa. I mean, we all know that Tampa is arguably the worst pass defense in the NFL. And without Alshon Jeffrey, and then, I mean, Who else? I mean, obviously you know have Zach Ertz, but let's just forget about Zach Ertz and like Dallas Goedert,
Goddard.
Goedert.
Um,
That wide receiver core is just a bunch of replacement level guys.
yeah. If they would let Mike Wallace not, if they would sit Mike Wallace a little more, I think Shelton Gibson could be a nice play because he had a really nice preseason. He was electric in the preseason. If he could get some snaps, he's like the deepest of dart throws. Because Aguilar's a nice player. He's got a lot of touchdown potential for a guy who plays primarily out of the slot, but he is a slot receiver for the majority of his snaps, which kind of limits his touchdown upside.
So we can really only look at him confidently on a full PPR site.
Yeah, and you know they've got some nice play designs for him, like some wheel routes and things like that, where he does get into the end zone. He scored a good amount of touchdowns last season with them, but yeah, that receiving core is a bit of garbage at the moment.
Yeah, it's rough. But you know, I think if there's one thing the Eagles have going for them, you know, for hopefully years to come, and it's you know, just week by week scheming and keeping things fresh and unpredictable. That coaching staff is all world.
Yeah, I think the Bucks are atrocious, and they're going to get smacked. But
I agree. I agree. And you know what? And I think one thing about the Eagles too that's exciting is that, and it's very Patriots like, is that guy that did well last week on the Eagles or the Patriots is, you know, kind of same mindset will carry ownership and burn people.
Yep,
so Jay Ajayi will far and away be the most heavily owned Eagle, and it's entirely possible that any of these other, you know, moderately priced.
Yeah. I think Sproles is ruled out. So Corey Clement could get the receiving work.
And we saw Corey Clement have some explosive plays last year.
Yeah. So on a PPR site, that's something to note. Yeah. My Kenny Stills-esque call this week is it's a pretty far out there. But I'm interested in Kelvin Benjamin, and maybe I've just got some weird kind of Bills fetish this week, but he had some crazy kind of number of air yards. It was like 185 air yards in a single game. He caught one pass for like 7 yards or something like that. It was a garbage line, but he had the air yards, and you know that's supposedly a more stable kind of metric. And Josh Allen has a huge arm. If he's going to throw it downfield, it's going to be to Benjamin. Yeah, it's a tough matchup, but for whatever reason, Kelvin Benjamin is at his best in the worst matchups for him. You know, he goes against one of these shutdown corners, and that's when he ends up scoring 2 touchdowns and going over 100 yards or whatever. So just something to think about if you want to get a little crazy.
Yeah. And if you're looking for Min-Sal, and this was one of my dynasty darlings in the second round this year, got him on all my teams. Out of Washington, University of Washington, Mr. Dante Pettis of the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, I think he's got a lot of buzz going around him, but I like it.
He does. I don't think he's going to go into the double digits of ownership. And like I said last week, and I'll say it many more times in the weeks to come, I would much rather eat expensive chalk than eat cheap chalk. And yes, that was what I said about James Conner, but I already explained why I screwed up with James Conner because A, he's a running back, and B, the Steelers concentrate touches into a small number of players, and he is a legit talent that flashed in preseason, and they're playing the Browns. I don't like, though, on the whole, to eat chalk with cheap guys. I don't think that Dante Pettis is going to be chalky, but he's a hell of a player, and he had a crazy touchdown catch. Showed really nice hands on a touchdown catch last week. He's an interesting guy. 4,500. If you need to like just squeeze out every little drop of salary to get some high priced guys, I don't mind it against that Detroit Lions. Matt Patricia give up a lot of yards defense.
Yep. All right, so let's wrap up with one tight end each here, Fern. For me, my guy's going to be old Ben Watson on the Saints in a game that there should be plenty of scoring. He had a fairly decent line last week against the Bucs, which are surprisingly good against the tight end for whatever reason. They're not good at anything else, but much better matchup against the Browns. If you recall from last season, the Browns were like a top 3 defense to target with usable tight ends. So I think Watson still has something left in the tank. It's early in the season. He hasn't worn out. He'll get you a touchdown this week.
I love it. I love Ben Watson. I love it. I don't see any way I'm going to, I bought Gronk last week, and I'm happy I did. I don't see any way I buy Gronk this week because like I said, George Kittle is a smash for me. I think he's going to be amazing this week and catch us 8 balls at least. They're going to pepper him, but and it's really going to be hard for me to do this by just naming one guy. So I'm going to have to name 2 guys. And the first one is Jonnu Smith, just 4,200 going against Houston. Delaney Walker's been IR'd, and Jonnu, freak athlete on an offense with a quarterback that likes to go to the tight end, and Mariota's reportedly having trouble adjusting to this new scheme. And we know when a veteran quarterback like Mariota is feeling uncomfortable, what does he do? He goes to his safety valve, his tight end, his big-bodied receivers. So Jonnu, I think, has a nice floor relative to his price. And then the other guy, though, that I think is like highly unlikely to fail, like a cash lock, other than Kittle, is Jack Doyle going against them Redskins. And I just don't think that Jack Doyle is going to have very many duds this year. Andrew Luck loves him dearly, and he is just such a competent receiver. He, I think, like tripled the number of routes run compared to Eric Ebron. And I think the public is just not aware of that yet. Like, I don't think that the public gets it, that Eric Ebron is not a threat to him. Yes, he caught a touchdown last week.
They play different positions.
Basis, it's no contest.
Yeah, and there's such a target floor for Doyle. I think Andrew Luck only threw 3 passes beyond 15 yards last week, and Jack Doyle operates in that 7 to 11 yard range.
Oh, if you're playing that Redskins and Colts game, it's going to be all about Jack Doyle and Chris Thompson and Jordan Reed, like all these auxiliary, tight ends and running backs. You're going to have T.Y. Hilton and Jamison Crowder, making appearances. But these 2 quarterbacks, at least based on their week 1 performances and Alec Smith's many-year reputation, they're not going to be looking out wide. They're looking to keep it short and sweet. And so, like you said, his target floor is very high, Jack Doyle.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man.
All right. My beer is empty, Fern, so that means it's time to go. Yes, my 16-ouncer. Nice porter called Sticky Thoughts.
Nice.
By Forest and Maine Brewing Co. right here in Ambler, PA.
I am drinking Brewers Alley Oktoberfest from Frederick, Maryland, where I live. And this was the bar that Sean and we met up at and had some Brewers Alley brews. So speaking of Sean, I am going to get on the horn with him and tell him that he has to make an appearance with us one week.
You were getting a little misty there, Fern, when you started talking about Brewers Alley.
I know, Brewers Alley and Sean, man. Yeah, I'm gonna have to, like, head down to Texas and, like, give him a knuckle sandwich if he doesn't get in here
Right.
with us.
We'll fly down there and show up. Say, guess what? You're on the live stream tonight. We're all in the same room.
Oh yeah.
But all right, guys. Good luck this week. You know where to find us on Slack, etc. Fern, good luck, man.
Mike, you too, man. I wish you all the best. Don't make any mistakes. Don't forget to play some of these stud guys like we did last week. We got it.
There you go. All right. Take care, guys.